Hello, chat. Sorry about that. I thought I had 5 more minutes. It turns out I was late by 5 minutes. Is that it? Is that tiring? Am I tiring you, Clyde? Is this boring? All right. So, guys, we were gonna look into the Google um, search engine monopoly issue. That's 300 some pages. So we're gonna have to break that up. It's gonna be a multiple uh thing. And it does get a little more technical than I anticipated. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on it. So a little apologizing for that. But what we are going to cover is Kari Morrissey coping and coping like a boss. And what are we talking about with Kari coping? During the Alec Baldwin trial, you guys remember Alec Baldwin won. He got a dismissal with prejudice because the state kept breaking the rules. In particular, Brady violations, any exculpatory material or material that could be exculpatory was not provided to Alec Baldwin's team. Now, obviously, the big one that had everything, was the issue about the live ammunition that looked like dummy ammunition. But it wasn't just that. If you guys remember listening to that ruling, this was the final straw, and it was a big straw. But as we went through those hearings leading up to the trial, Alec Baldwin, Clyde's ashamed. He's like, "You embarrass me, fat man." um, what happened there? Well, remember the Lucian Haig, the firearms expert that the state hired, they had done actually 2 separate reports in addition to the other report that we have seen. Alec Baldwin's team was heavily involved in litigating that issue about where were these other 2 reports. And hold on one second. She still won't come in here. One day she will. The issues of these reports not being provided to the defense. And Kari Morrissey would say, "Oh, well, it wasn't a big deal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem." But it turned out that it was a problem because in those assessments, they determined, wow, there are marks on the gun we can't explain. There are marks on the internal components that are not clear and can't be identified. And then there were discussions between Lucian Haig and the FBI expert who broke the firearm. So there were, hold on, chat. Sorry about that, guys. I did not beat them. I just made sure she could get outside. Lainey will stare at the dog door, and it's like she doesn't figure out it opens half the time. So, Coke Fairy says, "Hail, chat." Oh, not that kind of Coke. Okay. So, we saw that routinely throughout the Alec Baldwin case because Alec Baldwin's attorneys were really good at sussing this information out, that there were multiple discovery failures and Brady violations. Well, guess what? Hannah Reed was deprived of all that evidence as well. And Jason Bowles, I'll give him credit. He hasn't done a very good job so far. Actually did file a very good motion for a new trial. And Kari Morrissey now has to respond to that. And in the middle of that, she copes a lot about what happened during Alec Baldwin's case. And this lays it out very, very well. Garrett says, "Who leaked the body cam footage, Sean? Who?" I still don't know who did. Cynthia may find that out one day. Yes, it's the fat guy Ricada yelled at. Yes, it is. Jeff, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. Luke G says, convert to Orthodoxy, leave Rome. I don't know if I can do that, boss. I don't know if I can do that. That's bridge too far. I'm a goofy goober. Yeah. Says, what did the judge mean when she said the conduct of the prosecution was so close to malicious? It showed signs of scourging. I don't know how she said scourging, but it's there were, it was, even if there was a misconduct, even if it was accidental, their actions were so incompetent. It almost questions whether it was intentional and malicious what they did. And I think so. That was the problem. They did so much. It's so much evidence got hid, and they decided it wasn't important. They knew about all of it. And that was the thing. Kari Morrissey went up there and said, I knew about the ammo. I knew about the reports. Well, at some point, this judge did the right thing. She smacked the prosecution down. And this should be happening all over America. Sadly, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen enough. But here we are. Duncan Adams says, did you go over the body cam footage? No, there's no body cam footage yet, guys. Holy shit. There's no body cam footage. Yes, Kari got felted really bad. Yes, really bad. And I have a feeling she's going to get felted again because this was an absolute disgusting situation. But let's get to Kari Morrissey's cope. I mean, literally, this is an emotion. Her response to Jason Bowles is entirely cope. And I'm not going to go through what Jason Bowles wrote because we've already talked about, the end of the Alec Baldwin trial, what he was going to file. And yeah, it's all the things that Alec Baldwin's team has raised. So here we go. And she's toast. She's toast at this point, guys. Now, I will apologize. I know it says July 31st on it, and that's just, it took a little while to get around to it. Just, there's been a bunch of stuff we've been covering. Really, it's only August 7th, so it's not too bad. So here we go, Chad. Here we go. Gotta make it the right color green. All right. So July 31st at 10:38 in the evening. And now remember, guys, they have electronic filing, so that's why they're filing so late. Yes, as Nima says, comes now. And that's just a normal styling, guys. You see that in all legal documents. I know, come. So she talks about the facts relevant here. And I love how she starts off with this. Well, Hannah seems to complain. No, she's very much complaining. She's calling you out on 4 issues she alleges support her motion. First, that undersigned counsel lied under oath during a motion hearing during the trial against Baldwin and failed to disclose the existence of the ammunition that was obtained by Troy Teskey. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did, Kari. If you didn't, that was a very, very good amount of skipping around the issue, which, remember, guys, she went up there. Remember, she went on the stand by herself. She volunteered to go up there. And what have I told you time and time again? Never, ever, 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 ever voluntarily take the stand. It is a dangerous place to be. You are literally in the middle, like it's an ambush point, and people can attack you, and there's very little you can do to protect yourself. You're all out there by yourself. You're like a politician speaking at a podium. You are completely at the whim of the rest of the world. Don't ever want to be there. And Kari's like, you know what? I want to do it. So she did it. Then she brings up her second issue. The defendant raised the concerns regarding an audio recorded interview with Seth Kenney that was not disclosed until after a trial was concluded. Yeah, that's important information. Third, and because remember, the issue was Seth involved in bringing the ammo on set? And with that new ammunition revelation, he could have been involved, which then kind of mitigates some of Hannah's culpability. So, yeah, that is a big deal. It is a big deal. Third, and guys, if you remember when Kari Morrissey was up there, Alec Baldwin's attorney said, is it true you ever called my client a cocksucker? And she's like, Which interview did I say that? No, I've never said that. Once again, the way people answer questions can tell you what the answer is. Third, Hannah Reid asserts she should be able to get a new trial because of the supplemental reports. Remember, there are 2 reports that were produced, were not provided to her counsel prior to her trial. And remember, that's the one where the guy says, there are markings on the gun that I don't recognize from the FBI testing or from the factory tooling, which shows the gun might have been messed with. Remember, that could alleviate Hannah's issues as well if the gun was sabotaged or broken. And then it says, fourth, Hannah Reid says she can grant a new trial because there are, now she calls them unremarkable email communications between the experts Lucian Haig and Brian Carpenter. And Brian Carpenter is the armorer expert that weren't disclosed. Now, I love how she calls them remarkable. Unremarkable. Well, you don't get to decide if they're unremarkable or not, Kari. Remember, it's the same reason why she didn't disclose the bullet evidence, she said. I determined they weren't relevant. That's not your job, Kari. That's not your job to determine what's remarkable and unremarkable. Because obviously the judge completely disagreed with you about what's remarkable and unremarkable. So, now this is where the cope begins, Chet. The Baldwin trial and the allegations of misconduct. Oh, she is just, some men compromise, others cope. And Kari, she all about that cope. The Mayor Copenhagen, Kari Morrissey. Copenhagen, New Mexico. I did not lie under oath. Okay. That's a very strong statement being made under oath. Undersigned counsel testified she was aware Troy Teske provided ammunition to the sheriff's department at the end of the Hannah Reid trial. She further testified she was not aware that the doc report outlining the fact the ammunition had been provided did not contain the same case number or would not be linked to the same case number as the rest of the evidence related. This is a true statement. And undersigned counsel qualified her statement by explaining that she misunderstood that the doc report would have a different case number assigned to it because she is not a law enforcement officer and doesn't work in the sheriff's department. But she, remember, guys, she knew about it. She knew about this and didn't disclose new evidence to the defense counsel after the trial was, oh, by the way, here's new evidence. The state, if they find exculpatory material, don't just once the trial's over can go, done. Or let's say I have a case and a client pleads out. But we find the state finds exculpatory evidence, like massively exculpatory evidence, where I had to sit there with my client. I'm like, look, dude, we have a story, but we can't prove it. We have no way of disproving the state's case right now. Like, we can't prove anything. You know, we want to assert this allegation. We have no way of proving it. But let's say they find it. They have an obligation to tell me about it. Because at that point, we might have a new trial. But here they didn't. And I think that's a massive issue that Kari's kind of glossing over. She did not tell Jason Bowles, oh my God, here's a bunch of evidence. Here's a bunch of reports you never got. She then says Corporal Hancock, remember, Detective Ducklips, understood the new doc report would have a different case number because it was a separate report. Undersigned counsel did not understand that the reports have different case numbers due to her lack of familiarity with the manner in which case numbers are assigned to the sheriff's department. And, you know, both her and yes, me and the detective testified truthfully. Isn't that very self-serving? She also testified truthfully when asked why Ms. Johnson withdrew from the case during the motion hearing. All right, guys, remember, Alec Ball, her second in command, when the trial reconvened, when I got home from court, and I got here at 2.0 was holding down the fort. Remember, Erlinda Johnson, the one who was doing really good in this case, all of a sudden it was just Kari all by herself. She asked why she withdrew. Prior to the lunch break, without hearing any testimony or argument related to the motion to dismiss, the court went off the record and notified Kari and Alex Spiro that she was intending to dismiss the case. Yes, so it was already DOA by the time we got to the stuff in the afternoon. Underside counsel and Ms. Johnson discussed the issue at great length over the lunch hour. Based on the court's off-the-record statement, it was apparent the court was intending to dismiss the case. So the state had two choices. One, dismiss the case on its own volition, or two, have a full hearing. Develop the record and let the court dismiss the case. Why? Because you're not... Notice Kari didn't appeal that. Kari did not appeal the dismissal. And she could have. She could have appealed this, and she didn't do it. She sat on her ass. Yes, 2.0 made a good stream. I know. And I know there are some people who are typically not on that weren't normally on. They were like, who are these people? Well, that was 2.0 holding down the fort while I was gone. Once 2.0 streaming again, she's really busy, guys. And give it like a month or so, and she'll probably be poking her head back in on things. So. But yeah, she did a great job, and I'm very appreciative to have her. But this idea, you're going to let them develop a record and let the court dismiss the case. So you're going to the idea you're going to stand there and get battered endlessly by the court and let that judge BTFO you. Oh, well, I went down with my head held high. No, you got fucking owned, Kari. Nobody sits there and is like, oh, this is beautiful. Erlinda stated the second in command wanted to dismiss the case and stated she wanted the case dismissed out of concerns for self-preservation. This sounds like bullshit to me. Undersigned counsel disagreed that self-preservation was an appropriate reason to dismiss a homicide case. Disagreed that dismissal was warranted in the circumstances and proceeded to a full hearing. Well, apparently it was warranted, Kari, and you looked like a fucking dickhead in front of the entire country. I don't understand why well, I did the good fight. You looked like a scumbag on national TV. So, Ms. Johnson did not want a public hearing on the concerns for self-preservation, and I testified truthfully in that regard. When you see undersigned counsel, that's Kari referring to herself. Well, I don't know how truthful that was. Now, I will say this becomes an issue for Erlinda Johnson. There are times where you have a duty to correct a record if you know factual statements aren't correct and you are a party to the case. She might have an issue there about coming in and filing an affidavit saying, no, whoa, time out. That's not what I said. But I think she might just let this go and move on with her life. Who knows? We don't really know yet. But yes, the other point here, though, is this is all hearsay. Now, she can argue, I mean, this is an evidentiary motion, so I don't know if Bowles is going to come back and respond to this, but I'd say it's all hearsay. It's all self-serving. If this is really true, she should go to Erlinda Johnson and get an affidavit and have her say under penalty of perjury, this is true. This is what I did. But I don't think she will. She says, I have not had a win-at-all-cost attitude in the Rust cases. It sure seems like it because you've been getting mighty fired up every time somebody gives you pushback. In fact, it has been the opposite, and Mr. Bowles knows it. No, watching you and Alex Spiro fight all the time, you looked like you were all about wanting to do this. Um, undersigned counsel attempted to resolve Hannah Reed's case with an agreement that would have prevented her from being incarcerated and prevented her from being a convicted felon. She said, presumably upon the advice of her trial counsel, she declined a plea officer as is her right. I then went so far as to file a civil motion asking the court to counsel Hannah Reed with regard to the plea offer on the record to ensure her refusal to accept the offer was knowing, intelligent, and voluntary. That's interesting because we don't have access to that. We don't have access to that. She filed a sealed motion saying to the court, you should speak on the record. I can only imagine the disparaging shit she said in there about Jason Bowles. Now, like I said, I agree, guys. I don't have any love lost for Jason Bowles. I don't think he did a good job. But, Kari Morrissey, who the fuck are you? Because what was she going to say? I think he's compromised. I don't think he's making her best interest at heart. Like, what's the deal? If you have questions about her comp, and now if it's an issue of Hannah Reed's competency, you have an obligation to bring that to the court, Kari, and say, well, I want to evaluate it. Now, obviously, that's not the case. I think she's going to try to argue that, Baldwin had their hand in Bowles' pocket. Well, okay, then prove it. The court declined to put the plea on the record and ensure that Hannah understood the consequences of her decision, which is a little weird, but technically, yes, a lot of times the court will make sure that that's put on the record so she can officially say, I reject that and I want to go to trial. Similarly, I offered a plea to a misdemeanor to Baldwin, but rescinded the plea offer when further information surfaced regarding his conduct with material witnesses of the case. Oh, see, this is interesting now because I bet Kari's going to get caught because I guarantee you this time frame where she found a material witness issue, I'm sure it's the same time Baldwin's going around running his fucking mouth to the press. And I'm sure that's what really pissed her off. But she found like an end run around to say, oh, no, it's this reason instead. No, guys, not over here. It's this, which is very, very interesting. I wonder. So now she's kind of locked into the guys. Here's the point. Just like going on the witness stand, she is now making these claims. She's locked into these. Oh, Kino's going on tonight again? Oh, well. Bye, J-Rock. Kino's streaming in tonight. Yeah, and I understand they're talking about the whole Nick and pleading out, but it's not for Nick. It's for Kayla. But whatever. This is hardly a win-at-all-cost attitude. You very much acted like you were at a win-at-all-cost attitude pretty much right away, Kari. She says, I testified truthfully in regard to the termination of the previous paralegal assigned to the Rust cases. She said the guy's work was unsatisfactory and that his vision was made that his job would end at the conclusion of the Hannah Reed trial. I stopped giving him tasks due to his poor quality of his work, and it's resulted in his ineffective termination. Tom complained about working conditions as it related to another employee at the DA's office, who he had difficulty getting along with, but never complained about undersigned counsel until he complained that she was no longer assigning him tasks. See, states attached exhibit number 1. Now, let's see what that is, because what is exhibit number 1? Let's see here. States exhibit number 1 from Harry Taub. Just to close up the discussion, as mentioned to you by providing me about 1 hour work over the past 6 days, has effectively dismissed me from the case. This was the choice of Kari T. Morrissey as she is in charge. As I've been left with virtually no work, I need to seek and obtain other work and mitigate my losses. I do not believe any course of action other than which I pursued would be proper. I wish you all the best in the matter. You are very clear that my engagement terminates at the end of the Hannah trial, but that assumed that I had work to do, which I have not. This engagement simply takes place due to Kari's conduct, which has been her choice entirely. I made all the arrangements I was asked to make. Mr. Baca was very helpful indeed. So that actually doesn't say what she thinks it says. That's the funny part here. Like, Kari, I don't think that says what you think it says here, sweetheart. You stopped him. You did constructive termination. You forced him to quit. Someone get PPP into Bible explain the interwebs. Yeah. Say it should be noted that Bowles made mention of the emails and an affidavit concerning the issue of Taub's termination, but attached none as exhibits to his motion. Kari will move to strike or an alternative request leave to submit supplemental briefing should Bowles decide to submit emails or affidavits to his reply. Kari testified truthfully regarding Bowles did not want the Troy Teske rounds. I'm not sure that's true the way it shook out, Kari. Yes, she's throwing everybody under the bus. And she's not going to have a single lawyer friend alive at the end of this. Yeah. Debbie O says, did she just admit to an employee relations issue? No. Constructive termination where I force the conditions to make you quit is not illegal on its face. It's considered kind of uncouth and not nice to do, but I can forcibly make you quit by strangling your workflow. That does happen. It's not encouraged, but you can do it that way. So, yes. So during the brief statement Troy Teske made when providing the ammunition to the sheriff's department, he stated he was asked by defense counsel to testify in Hannah Reed's behalf and bring the ammunition in his possession to the trial. Troy Teske did as he was told, and Mr. Bowles decided not to call him as a witness and not to use the ammunition that was brought from Arizona. Now, this is the one issue where I think Bowles did, it's one thing when the evidence comes to you and then you dump it and get rid of it. And you're like, I don't want it. That's the one thing that may hurt Hannah. But for Hannah, I would argue that gives her an ineffective assistance of counsel claim. A very good one. Now, some of you guys might think, well, Hannah hired her attorney. That's true. But even though it's ineffective assistance of counsel, you can still do that with retained counsel. So, and I think Bowles' actions at times have risen to that. And remember, Bowles didn't inspect this evidence. He looked at it the last minute, didn't really do his job, didn't do his due diligence. And that could have very likely changed the outcome of the trial, as the introduction of that stuff in the Alec Baldwin trial led to a dismissal. So that could be where Hannah she might lose here and has to win on an appeal. Troy Teske specifically stated in his brief statement that Hannah's Reed counsel, Jason Bowles, didn't want the evidence he brought from Arizona. Now, this you can hear it in her voice. You can read this in her voice. It is stunning that Mr. Bowles now claims that his client was somehow prejudiced by the state's failure to disclose the ammunition that was not in the state's presence, but was in the possession of a defense witness and was available to defense counsel. And that's probably one thing that will hurt, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with jumping on her when you got the chance. Then he talked about the January 8th email referenced by Bowles had 4 photos of the Teske ammunition attached. Bowles provided these photos to Kari Morrissey. The photos depicted 4 rounds that had brass primers, only one had a Starline brass casing, and all had projectiles similar to rounds found on the set of Rust. Now remember, guys, this is the issue of these were live rounds that looked like dummy rounds, and this would have probably been going to the idea that Seth Kenny was the reason why the rounds got on set. But Kari's argument was they're dissimilar to the rounds that were found on the set of Rust, which, okay, but that leads to, well, how could they have gotten there? Bowles is the person who provided Morrissey with the information that caused her to abandon any effort to obtain or test the rounds. The only information that she had about the Teske rounds is the information provided by Bowles and Teske, and all the information that was that the rounds of Teske's possession were dissimilar to the rounds from Rust. Now, here's the issue, Kari. Why didn't you investigate that? I mean, you took these guys at their word. Why aren't you investigating this? Why aren't you doing this right? Yeah, Salty Spittoon says, I also have a theory Spiro knew about them as well and lied. Here's the deal, though. Here's the deal. And we're seeing this in the Young Thug trial. If I know there's evidence out there and the state has committed a Brady violation, the state is still committed the Brady violation. And Kari knew she was committing a Brady violation. She's like, I decided they weren't relevant. So, but yes, I would argue Bowles knew about the bullets, and I said it at the beginning. Way back when we watched the trial, I think I said that night, Hannah's going to have a tough time getting a new trial right away because Bowles knew about him and didn't do anything. Now, do I think, like I said, there's an ineffective assistant counsel claim? Sure. But I have a feeling Judge Marlowe might just grant it as a big fuck you to Kari. Then on November 1st, just 1 week after Helena's death, Teskey had the following text exchange with Kenny where he provided Seth Kenny with a photo of all the different types of ammo that he could find in the .45 caliber ammunition he stored for Del Reed. That's Mr. Reed. The photo depicted 4 rounds, one with a Starline brass casing and a brass primer, one on a CBC casing with a brass primer, one with a Winchester casing and a brass primer, and the one with a BHA casing and a brass primer. Remember, guys, brass primers are to indicate they are live ammunition. The photo does not show the projectile size and shape, but are all clearly dissimilar to the live rounds on the set of Russ, which all had Starline brass casings and silver/nickel primers. And their argument was, well, who knows how these got there or where they could have gotten. And these ammo are live rounds that look like dummies. I said that, I misstated that earlier, guys, sorry. The brass was meant to be dummy ammunition. But these are live rounds of ammo. And she's struggling right now. So this is Troy DeFuzz Teskey saying, I checked a bunch of the rounds. Here are the 4 types that I could find. So brilliant. I love the quality of the picture, chat. Isn't it great? Now, ideally, she's got color pictures somewhere. 2 years later, Teskey's pretrial interview was conducted as he was being called as a witness in the Hannah Reid trial. During the interview, she questioned, and the other side counsel against, I'm thinking saying again, inquired of the ammunition, considered taking steps to obtain the ammunition from Teskey, but had difficulty determining if his material evidence. You're not sure. When in doubt, get it. That's the best thumbnail I ever saw. Did Meme Copium make that for you? No, I made that myself. Whoa. Time out here. I do my own thumbnails, except for like that Sarah Boo one. That was AI generated. No, I generally do my own. It's so much fun at like working in Photoshop. I play with it. It's a tax write-off for the Photoshop subscription. So it's fun. It's fun. No, I don't. I do all my own. Venetron. This is the Kari Morrissey's motion opposing Hannah Reid's request for a new trial. She's basically coping about why she hid all the evidence. But here, she says, I had difficulty determining his material. If you're not sure, when in doubt, disclose. And that was something when I was at my first prosecutor gig, my boss was very big on that. He's like, if you're in doubt, disclose. And if you're still really not sure, come ask me. And he says, I'm probably going to tell you to disclose it anyway. But when in doubt, disclose. That's the easiest way. If you disclose too much, you're generally not in a problem. Bowles provided the following pictures to Kari and asked if she would send the rounds to the FBI for testing. The photos provided by Bowles on January 8th, so right before trial, show the exact rounds that were photographed and sent to Seth Kenny on November 1st. Only one in the photo, the truncated cone projectile, can be seen confirming the rounds are highly dissimilar to the live rounds found in Lucetta Rust. I don't know how you can tell from this picture, but okay. The rounds are comprised of 4 rounds, one with, and remember, they all have brass primers, so they look like dummies, but they're sure as hell live. As of January, Teskey was in possession of the 45 rounds belonging to Thel Reed, none of which were similar in size, shape to the live rounds found on the set of Rust. The live rounds for the set of Rust are pictured below. Yep, and those are right. Those are the ones. They're saying, to be clear, the ammunition Troy Teskey had was owned by Thel Reed, Hannah's dad, and there's no evidence that they ever left the state of Arizona until Teskey brought them to New Mexico at Bull's request during the Hannah Reed trial. How do you know that? How do you know that? You don't explain how you know that. She said that during a trial. How do you know that, Kari? You can't explain that yet. They were not provided to law enforcement or anyone on the prosecution team until the end of Hannah's trial. Okay, so what? So what? The rounds were not in the state's possession until March 6, 2024. On November 3rd, Seth Kenny asked Troy Teskey if he had located any rounds of silver primers, and Teskey responded, no. The first time undersigned counsel became aware that Troy Teskey's possession of rounds looked similar to the rounds from Rust was the morning of July 12, 2024, because she was under the mistaken impression that the rounds received by the Sheriff's Department in March were the same rounds for the photos provided by Troy Teskey in 2021 and 2024. Now, here's something. Why were you not checking? Why didn't you check? Why? Remember, she knows they exist. She knows they exist and she didn't check. Check, like literally. All you got to do is go, well, yep, it doesn't look like that. Oh, golly, they don't look the same. That's all you had to do, Kari. That's all you had to do. But instead, you're just like, herp, burp, 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 burp. I'm not looking. I mean, you are not the district attorney. You don't get to act like a government employee completely. You actually have to do your work. So it's highly suspect that Mr. Teskey provided photos of the rounds in November and January of rounds that are completely dissimilar to the live rounds found on the set of Rust, confirmed in writing in November 2021 that he was unable to locate any rounds of silver primers, and then on March 6th, he dropped off rounds similar to those from Rust. You're right, it is suspect, but you know what? This is where an investigation would have been helpful. Providing that information to the defense, getting your detective, telling Duck Lips, get off her ass, get a hold of him, figure it out. Is he offering? Because look, if he's offering doctored evidence, then go after him. Go after him if he's offering doctored evidence. If he's manufacturing evidence, go after him for that. Don't go, oh, this is sketch, and ignore it. You should have been like, what is this guy doing? How is he fucking with the trial? What is he doing? Is this illegal? Should we have to stop him? No, you're just like, whatever. Like, you can't on one hand say this is all suspect and highly suspicious, and then you're just like, meh. It's like, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. It's very sus. And once again, Troy DeFuzz Teskey. Now, she's hanging her hat on the stuff that happened years ago. It's like, well, why didn't you just start with that and go from there? Subpoena records and like do all this stuff. You had months to get ready. And you didn't bother. And here he goes. Sitting in rounds in either box with nickel primers. No. The ammunition was never in the possession of Seth Kenny or any witness listed on the state or defense witness list in the Baldwin case. Other than possibly Hannah Reed herself, the court was unwilling to compel her testimony. How do you know that? How do you know that, Kari? You didn't investigate. You didn't investigate, Kari. You did not investigate. You have no way of knowing this. You have no way of knowing this answer at this point. Because you didn't investigate anything about the ammunition. Because then you would have said, oh, yeah, Troy Teskey manufactured it, and he made it like the week before, so we're charging him. You didn't do that. She says, I'm still struggling to understand how ammunition that was never in the possession of, seen by or known to any witness being called to trial and was turned over 2.5 years after the death, creates a discovery violation that justified a dismissal with prejudice of Mr. Baldwin's case. I mean, it's very simple. You didn't do your job to make sure that it was bullshit. I'm still struggling to understand. You didn't do your job, Kari. You should have been able to investigate and explain. Look, Judge, I understand this looks bad. Duck Lips looked into it. We actually tracked it all down. We sweated Troy. He admitted he made it the week before. No, you're just like, well, it's not right, Judge. She can't take your word for that. Did you look into it? No. So how do you know? Well, I have a feeling. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. The difference isn't this is the difference in lawyers that are smart and mediocre. Yes. And Kari was just lazy. She didn't bother to do the work. And she has detectives. It's not like you're the defense and you're kind of hamstrung by your resources. Just send your goddamn detectives out to go do some fucking work. I mean, they got all the money they wanted. They were requesting funding for this case, but she didn't do it. I mean, she was being lazy. She's like, I don't understand it. And you know what? If you had investigated, you might understand it. Or you'd be able to explain it. You can't explain it right now. And that's her problem here. And she's saying, of all the rounds turned over by Teskey, all belonged to Thel Reed, and 3 appeared similar to live rounds found on the set of Rust. Yeah. And there we go. And she says, again, there's no evidence any of these rounds were in possession of Seth Kenney or anyone other than Mr. Reed, Troy Teskey, and possibly Hannah Reed. How do you know? How do you know? Hannah Reed stated during her second interview with Corporal Hancock that she sourced her dummy rounds from her father. Okay? This evidence does not support a sabotage theory. You don't have a full explanation of it. It supports what the state had asserted all along, that she brought the live rounds onto the set of Rust after obtaining them from her father, Thel Reed. Yeah, but you never explained where these rounds came from. Moreover, we assume that the live rounds found on the set of Rust were planted there by a saboteur, even though they appeared identical to Thel Reed's rounds produced by Troy Teskey. It was still Hannah's job to inspect the rounds and ensure that all rounds put in the gun for rehearsal were inert. She failed at this simple task and resulted in someone's death. For this failure, she was tried and convicted. If there was a saboteur running around, how is she going to know? If people are intentionally causing issues, how would she know? Till something happened. This doesn't work out. Like Kari, no jury's going to convict her if there's a proof of a saboteur. Nobody's going to convict her. Saboteur is a pretty cool game. Yes, it is a very cool game. So, it was still, when she failed at this, resulted in someone's death. Discussed it on July 12th at the Baldwin motion hearing. Hannah photographed herself in possession of live rounds on or about November 30th. She sent the photos to her attorney, and they were later discussed in text messages that included Thel Reed, thus breaking any privilege that may have existed, despite Hannah's full waiver of privilege. Remember that, guys. Her attorney did a full waiver of privilege with regard to her cell phone extraction. These photos make the Teskey rounds even more inculpatory and not at all exculpatory. Well, if they were inculpatory, why didn't you use them? Why didn't you use these? I mean, that's an issue here, Kari. If they're more inculpatory than exculpatory, you didn't bother using them. Why wouldn't you use that to even nail things down more? If you knew that, you would have used it. Hold on. So I mean, I can't see. We don't know if that's any worth. I I don't know, guys. Those pictures don't really help us here. These photos above were taken 5 weeks after the death of Lena Hutchins, were of live rounds described in the text messages between Bowles, Del Reed, and Hannah Reed. These rounds appear to match the live rounds found on the set of Rust. Undersigned counsel intended to use these photos during the trial if Hannah Reed testified, but she did not. These photos further demonstrate the live rounds of Teskey's possession are relevant to Hannah Reed's culpability if they are relevant of anything at all. Well, it sounds like you could have called Troy Teskey and got stuff in, but you didn't do it. Why didn't you make Troy Teskey testify? Because you didn't investigate him. You know, it's worth noting that sending ammunition to the FBI for testing is not determinative of whether or not they are the same ammunition from the set of Rust. I mean, you're kind of knocking a hole in how great the FBI is here. Debbie says, "Are they really arguing about religious stuff in here? Why? Because they're being autistic. It's okay." All the FBI can determine is whether the powder uses the same, but that same type of powder is used to make millions of cartridges every year by countless different manufacturers. Okay. Robert Gillette, the explosives analyst for the FBI, testified during the Hannah Reed trial that he can only determine if one type of powder is consistent with another. He would never be able to determine whether the rounds from Rust were the same or from the same source as the similar-looking rounds of Mr. Teskey's possession. Well, that sounds a lot like reasonable doubt then. It sounds like you're admitting there's doubt. So, Warren's legal question whether Teskey had standing to consent to the seizure of Del Reed's property without Del's consent. And undersigned counsel was never provided with any consent to obtain or test the rounds by Mr. Reed. Now you're just telling you're making excuses, Kari. Will Reed says it never mattered where the rounds came from. Well, I think that's a fair statement as well. Tina said I turned 70 on Monday. Old as fuck. Well, congratulations. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Here's to 70 more. Unless you don't want to be around for 70 more, but however many more you got going for you, Tina. Congrats. So on page 6 of her new motion, Hannah states that the court, the integrity of the judicial system demanded that the court dismiss Baldwin's case of prejudice. How could it be any different with Hannah Reed's case with this proven litany of serious discovery abuses? And guys, I said that. It can't be any different. All those same things plagued Alec Baldwin's trial, plagued Hannah's. The intentional withholding of crucial evidence, the Brady and Giglio information by the state is compromising the integrity of the entire judicial process. And she says the answer is twofold. First, the question assumes the court properly dismissed the case against Baldwin. Oof. 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 She say, Judge, you a dumbass. And then, although the court's final order has not yet been filed, undersigned counsel contends the court misunderstood the testimony on July 12th and improperly dismissed the case against Baldwin. That's a brilliant idea. Tell the judge, hey, Judge, you're a moron. Yes, tell the judge, no, Judge. No, Judge, it is you who's the retard, not me. It is you. It's like, no. 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 Do not do that. Coke Fairy says, can I send you a walking stick? Well, if you're offering one, that'd be nice. For the case against Baldwin to be properly dismissed for a Brady violation, the court needed to find the following. The evidence at issue must be favorable to the accused. I think it was. Because either it is exculpatory or impeaching, and I think it could have been both. The evidence must have been suppressed by the state, either willfully or inadvertently, and it was. And prejudice must have ensured. Yes. Mr. Baldwin was charged with all rules promulgated to ensure firearm safety by actors on movie sets by pointing his gun, and she means at two people during a rehearsal, cocking his gun when the rehearsal did not call for that. You didn't get that far in the trial, so that's a fact. Assuming facts not within evidence. And pulling the trigger when rehearsal did not call for that action. Assuming facts not in evidence. Because it looks like it may have actually happened from what we know. That that might have been what he was ordered to do. The case was dismissed due to the state's failure to disclose the ammunition dropped off at the department by Troy Teskey and on March 6th to Baldwin's defense counsel. I think she means to Miss Gutierrez's defense counsel. The Teskey ammunition was provided 2.5 years after the shooting of Helene Hutchins. There's no evidence the ammunition was ever possessed by, seen, or known to any witnesses being called by the state or the defense. You don't know that because you never investigated. Remember, Detective Duckliss went up there and said, well, we tried to call him a couple of times, but he never got back to us. And that was the totality of their investigation. There is no evidence that Kenny ever possessed or knew of the Teskey rounds that appear similar to live rounds on the set of Rust. According to who? The evidence is not exculpatory, as it has nothing to do with the basis of the charge against Baldwin, and it is not impeaching, as Kenny or any of the witnesses never possessed or had knowledge of it. How do you know that? How do you know that? You don't know that. Do we see Sarah Boone Friday? Yes. Also, Kieran Reed is Friday as well. So we're going to have a big day on Friday. She says it was suppressed from defense because law enforcement was unable to develop any evidence that established the relevance of the ammunition. It's not for you to decide what's relevant and what's not. This is something I already mentioned. It's not your job to decide it's not relevant. It's never your job. It's not your job. That's not how that works. It's not your job to say that's not relevant. Wow, this really lights my face up. Nice. The state further contends that Baldwin suffered no prejudice as a result of the suppression due to the lack of connection of the ammunition to Kenny and the fact that the Baldwin defense team was well aware of the Teskey ammunition prior to trial because they suddenly canceled an evidence viewing in mid-June and cross-examined Marissa Popple at great length regarding the Teskey ammunition. So is your argument, I didn't make a Brady violation because they knew about it? You sound like the guys in the Young Thug trial making the same comment. And why is our power flickering? That's not good. Well, they're saying, second, if the court were to decide that the dismissal of the case against Baldwin was proper, there is one huge difference. In the Gutierrez case, the state was not in possession of the Teskey ammunition prior to trial. Although arguably Jason Bowles was. Well, and that's where, like I said, that's going to be an issue. In the Baldwin case, the state was in possession of it. Mr. Bowles is comparing apples to oranges and trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. You can't do two things like that at once. This is comparing apples to oranges, or you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You can't put two in there like that. You can't put two in there like that. It just doesn't work. So, um, so let's where to damn it, where to go? Okay, there. Sorry, drops out. Um, you can't do it that way. The undisclosed interview with Seth Kenney. When Mr. Kenney submitted to a pretrial interview with Baldwin's counsel on April 1st, that's very appropriate for the circus. They had an interview on April Fool's Day. He stated that shortly after the search of the prop truck at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, which is where this all happened, he met with investigators at the DA's office, provided a recorded statement. Undersigned counsel was unaware that Seth had such a meeting, and after his pretrial interview, she immediately reached out to the investigators, and they confirmed the recording of the statement existed. I requested a copy to be provided immediately and shared the recording with defense counsel for Baldwin and Hannah Reed. Remember, guys, Hannah Reed's case is already over, and she's providing evidence. So she already knows she has to provide things. She knows she has to provide them. So like the Lucian Hague reports, she didn't turn around and provide those to Hannah Reed's team. But she did this. It shows she understands how to handle things. You know, she was unaware of the recorded statement made by Seth Kenney when he met with the DA's office. Therefore, provide the recording to Hannah Reed's team. Okay. You know, however, the statement was cumulative and consistent with the text messages between Kenny Zachary and Gutierrez. All these messages were provided to the defense. So, Kenny's statement is also consistent with the testimony of other witnesses that testified at the trial and were interviewed by Bowles. Bowles points to 20 statements in Kenny's interview that he claims justify a new trial. And there's 20 of them, guys, and we're going to go through these a little quick here. Statement number 1 about the hierarchical relationship between Sarah Zachary and Hannah Reed is consistent with the statements made to law enforcement by Sarah Zachary and Hannah. It is consistent with the text messages between Sarah Zachary and Hannah. All that evidence has been in possession of Bowles since his client was initially charged. This is not new evidence. And if Mr. Bowles wanted clarification about the supervisory role, he simply could have asked him in his pretrial interview. And this part here, guys, this recorded statement is not one I knew about. I learned about this a while ago, but this isn't really the big thing. This is not going to be the thing that really brings down Kari's case. And this is where I think there's a lot of cope here from her. She's running around trying to yell about it. Bowles about a statement that Sarah Zachary was Hannah Reed's boss. And then he says, this is right here. Do you recall, and this is where we get to the issues here. It said, do you recall telling Hannah that Sarah was her boss and not to push it? He says, yes. And you were basically telling her to back off reporting anything. Do you recall telling Hannah something like that to back off because she wanted to report to production? And he says it wasn't that she wanted to report to production because Sarah had already reported herself. That was the issue. And then he says, but you're telling her to ignore it. And he says, yeah. Number 2 is that Jason Bowles is well aware of Hannah's experience in the film industry. Her resume was part of the evidence. If Bowles was interested in how his client's experience compared to Kenny's experience, he simply could have asked him. This testimony is immaterial to charge against Hannah Reed. Okay. You know, and that, like I said, guys, this stuff here is not going to be the issue. She can't spell trial correctly. Dude, you are going to have misspellings and all kinds of stuff. In his motion, Mr. Bowles took Seth's statements out of context and misstated Kenny's comments in order to make them self-serving. Kenny's statement was about the rattle test. It's the only way to differentiate whether or not in a moment, whether or not the round is live or it's a dummy round because the primers are intact. And he said from outward appearance, they're exactly the same. The bullet is 100% real. And the case, for the most part, is 100% real. And the primer is 100% real. It's just missing the active component, which is mercury fulminate, which is, yeah. Oh, you can reuse a primer if you flatten them back out, and you could take ground up match heads and they can go work in there. It's actually pretty cool. Take a match head and you grind it up, and then you take some of the striker off of a match box or a book of matches, the red stuff, and scrapes them off and mix it together, and you can like set it off with a hammer. It's actually pretty cool. Then a BB or piece of shot is put up in there, so you pick it up and you rattle them around. It's simple as that. And then he says, so when you get to a set and you're setting up with the prop card again, that's how I do it. I think most of the armors are on set, or your prop masters who handle guns, and even the experienced ones will handle blank ammo. They won't call out for an armorer. It just depends. Everybody's got their own set of experiences and comfort factors, so you would rattle test them. Okay. And she says that this statement is consistent with all the testimony in the case, including Hannah's statement the rattle test is the best way to tell a dummy round from a live round. It is worth noting that Mr. Kenny is not a professional prop master, nor is he a professional armorer. You relied on him for a lot of testimony in her trial. I'm just saying, that's yeah, now you're trying to say he's just a schmo. Okay. That's a little weird. That's a little weird there. The fact that replica guns look like real guns were both on a set of Russ was well known by Bowles, and he questioned numerous witnesses about it. An attempt to demonstrate the witnesses who claimed the guns left by Hannah Reed were confusing replicas for real guns. The fact that law enforcement personnel may have mistaken a replica for a real gun is immaterial to Hannah Reed's defense. It was the theory that Bowles was able to flesh out during trial. If he was, I got completely lost in the weeds on that. Because I didn't... That whole thing was just weird. And then I guess that makes sense why that weird boomer guy had like the fake gun with him and the real gun. But I don't know. That makes sense now, because I was wondering why the heck he had it with him, and it wasn't clear. So, and then she says that Sarah Zachary's communication that Hannah was going great and the director was happy was sent to Seth in a text message and was in the possession of a defense. All these communications from Seth to Sarah were contained in cell extractions and were in the possession. Once again, guys, I don't really care about that. It's undisputed that Kenny was told Hannah was a good armorer. The complaints he received from her prior to the shootings were unrelated to her skills in armor, were only related to her unwillingness to assist with props. So there's an issue there about whether or not people liked her. It's like, guys, this is not really that big a deal to me. The hotline is about the union hotline that was being used to receive complaints about safety issues. And this is from the interview, was referenced by Seth Kenny and was discussed in the pretrial interview of Ross Adiego. That's the guy who looked like Walter White, if you guys remember. He was the camera guy in there with Helena Hutchins when she got killed, and was known to the defense as of the date of the interview in October of 2023. The hotline and the number for the crew's union steward are found on the call sheet, which was disseminated to the crew daily and were provided to the defense of discovery. Okay, well, and guys, this stuff here we get to, and then guys, remember Mr. Bullion, and that's funny. Which Bond movie is that where the bad guy's name Mr. Bullion or Bullion? Oh, The World's Not Enough. Yeah, the guy with the gold teeth. But this is the attorney Hannah fired, and he was forced to stick around for a couple of days. I have the feeling this guy was trying to tell Hannah you should probably take a plea, or he didn't like hearing what was being told. But we're just going to, guys, like I said, these statements here I don't think are the problem. And these aren't, These aren't really the issues here that I think are the big problems for Kari. It gets back to the other stuff she did here, and these are the big ones. The undisclosed Hague report. And defense counsel has asserted he was provided one of the 3 reports by Lucian Hague. Well, remember, Alec Baldwin only got one of the 3 reports. He had to go and pull teeth of Kari Morrissey on the record in a pretrial hearing to get the other 2 reports. Defense counsel is either intentionally misleading the court or simply has not done his homework with regard to his allegations against the state. Hague produced 3 reports. The first was August 2nd, 2023, and was timely provided to the defendant. The second report was produced August 31st, and Kari believed she had forwarded the report on to defense counsel, but realized during pretrial work on the Baldwin case, she inadvertently failed to disclose the report. Okay, so 1, she didn't do. The third report was produced on October 5th, 2023, and was disclosed to defense counsel, was also uploaded to the discovery server for Hannah Reid. It's funny that Alec Baldwin didn't get those. The state concedes it failed to close the 31st report, but did disclose the October 5th one. The same day, the state's counsel received it from Lucian Hague. The report produced by Hague that was not disclosed was the August 31st one, discussing the tool marks on the top of the sear. The findings of this report are not exculpatory and do not result in a new trial for Ms. Gutierrez. And guys, that's the report right here, this October 31st report, where they sit there and go, these marks on the sear are different than the ones we're looking at. Those aren't the marks from the FBI testing it, and those are not tooling marks from the manufacturer. I don't know what those are. And if the gun is firing on its own, that does create a bit of an attenuation for Hannah Reid. That a malfunction, she may have not done her job right, but if the gun's malfunctioning beyond her ability or knowledge, how is she supposed to foresee that? Is that foreseeable to her? I'd argue no. Mr. Bowles is acutely aware that Baldwin's claims the gun discharged absent a trigger pull, and was also acutely aware of Baldwin's counsel's absurd assertion the gun was modified by someone. And the unproven modification resulted in the gun going off by itself. If it wasn't that absurd, they didn't get a chance to disprove it because you didn't give them the proper evidence. Salty says those marks were from the FBI testing, though. Not all the marks. As Lucian Hague said, there are marks at the time he couldn't determine. And then it was after these experts started talking to each other, they clarified their story. But then it looks like they're just cooking things up. So that's the problem. It is worth noting the person most likely who would have modified the gun was Hannah Reid. How would she know how to modify the gun? Because you've already stated, part of your argument, she had no idea what the hell she was doing. So is now Hannah Reid some sort of armor, like she could take apart the gun and fix it and modify it? How would she know? How would she know? I thought the idea was she was incompetent, Kari. Oh, well. Oh, well. And Salty says that was before he learned they hit it and did the fall testing. Yes, but that's still, he needs to come in and have to explain that, and that was not disclosed. And trying to come in after the fact and paper over it. Well, now he could say, are you sure? Is that because you guys then talked? Is that an issue? Were you guys colluding? Are you lying now? Remember, the defense has the right to figure all that information out, and this was hidden from them. We inadvertently fucked up. All Kari does is fuck up. I mean, that makes it very exculpatory, Salty, because now you got to figure out, when did it happen? How do you know? Oh, I talked to the expert, so now you guys are talking to each other. Does that make you more credible or less credible, Mr. Expert? And Hannah's team had the right to do that. Yeah, and say the defense get to know there's new marks. They're entitled to challenge it. And they can say, well, how did you make these marks? Why are they there? And then in exhibit number 4, Bowles verbally attacked the undersigned counsel for dismissing the case against Baldwin and requesting forensic testing of the gun in response to Baldwin's counsel's claim the gun was modified. Bowles stated when the slight wear and tear in the newest report, not sure what report Bowles is referring to, isn't remotely evidence of modification or anything to do with the trigger function or functionality of the weapon. But remember, he's missing a report, Kari, so not sure what report he's referring to. Not the one you didn't give him. Not the one you forgot to disclose. It's there. Like, he's obviously not referring to the one that would have supported him. You have videos of showing the gun properly worked, cocked, and fired on set. The FBI said the gun functioned properly prior to their damaging it. Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger, and you know it. Listen how mad she's getting. This right here, this is like, guys, remember we were doing some of the Young Thug filings, and everything's in like bold and underlined and all caps? We're to that point here. Baldwin pulled the trigger, and you know it. You know it. You know it. You know it, chat. Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger, and you know it. That is Copenhagen right there. She is so damn mad. She is malding. Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger, and you know it. Who's talking here? I mean, this is a. Oh. If the seer Bowles is like referring to the hammer, not the seer, not to file down, it wouldn't have cocked. Yes. It is important to note that Hannah hired her own expert, Frank Kuski. And this is where, once again, Kari, you're just being an asshole. The nice man who pointed the gun at the bench during his testimony. Just such an asshole, Kari. Yes, the guy sucked and he was a horrible witness, but now you're just being a dick. Now you're just being a dick. Oh. It's inappropriate to be as condescending in court filings. No, you shouldn't do this. This is very inappropriate. This is very inappropriate. Yeah, what a what a cunt. I mean, really. As the court can see from State's Exhibit 5, I offered to have the gun made available for Kuski's inspection and testing, and Bowles never took steps to have the gun tested or examined by him. The photo of the previously unexplained and now explained unusual tool marks on the working surface seer was in the possession of Bowles, and it was his duty to provide those photos of Kuski for his review as the defense expert. Remember, she's saying they should have known to check this out. It's your fault. You didn't do the investigation on your own. Remember, it's not his job to do the investigation, Kari. It's your job to investigate and provide exculpatory material. It's not his job to do anything. He could sit there and play Brick Blast and Candy Crush all day long. It's your job to provide that information. The tool marks referred to in the August 31st report were clearly depicted in the photos out in their possession of the defense counsel long before the trial. That's not, once again, she is pawning it off. She is pawning off the issue here. And he says, it seems unlikely, although it cannot be excluded, that these tool marks are the result of the damage occurred during FBI's impact testing, because the axis of these striae is not aligned with the direction that the hammer would have engaged and applied pressure to the seer. These tool marks are also unlikely to have had any bearing on the operation of the revolver at the time of incident based on the FBI's trigger pull data an FBI photograph of the hammer at full cock, and substantial test firing of item number 1 conducted by the FBI prior to the damage to the trigger, sear, and hammer. Their initial testing documented a lack of malfunctions, and their measured trigger pull values are consistent with the numerous other evidence and exemplar revolvers examined in this case. But we don't know that because these guys, these reports, they talk to each other. We know that. Remember, during the Alec Baldwin hearing, those hearings we had where Lucian Haig is sitting in his pretty cool gun office, and he's got a boomer internet connection. They said, you talked to the FBI experts, right? Yeah. So how do we know they weren't telling the truth? How do we know they aren't colluding together? You don't know. And you have the right to question those experts. You have the right to question their credibility. And that was denied to Hannah. So wait, how'd you know I was playing Brick Blast? Yes, it's your burden, not theirs. Yes. And that's the thing. It's and this is the defense attorney doing this. So Haig's report simply noted the unusual tool marks. He continued opining the gun worked properly and did not malfunction or fire on its own volition. As this court is aware, Haig has received additional information regarding the history of the gun and the accidental discharge testing of the gun by Ziegler at the FBI. As a result of this additional information, he modified his opinion in the report. Yes, after consulting with this person. And remember, Alex Spiro had to fucking pull teeth to get this. Kari Morrissey didn't volunteer this information. She had to drag it. They had to get dragged out of them. Kari Morrissey didn't disclose this report. And as Haig conducted a second pretrial interview on June 19th, remember, that's when we had to come back the Monday after, he stated as follows. Since I've had both the benefit of seeing Mr. Pieda's interview as how he makes the firearms in an interview fairly recently with Bryce Ziegler, where I could clarify how he did his impact testing, I would say my statement back in office was perhaps premature. I still maintain this is obvious damage, not an effort to improve the trigger in some way. It's not something that came in the gun, but what I did know at the time, was the history of this gun. So the statement was a very neutral, I don't have any further information. Now I do. And it says, I have learned that this particular gun was, the industry calls it, a one-off gun. It was assembled especially for a thing I usually attend called SHOT Show, and that's what they talk about. They put the guns together for a show, and they make them look sexy and fancy. And they got down to it, and they said, the only other choice left to us is the aggressive testing at the very end of Bryce Ziegler's work on this gun. Now, he says there's other things that are highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely to be abused because everybody else was a very good professional holding it at SHOT Show. So the only reasonable and logical explanation insofar as Ziegler that helped, because in August, I didn't have a clear understanding. I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to call him up as a witness and ask him about his testing, but he's described it in detail, and it clearly offers an explanation not only for this, several times now, these tool marks, but the diagonal aspect. So it keeps going here, and he points out that, yes, this is how I'm explaining it here. And remember, guys, this is then when he showed the gun on the screen, and we're like, oh no, we're going to lose our feed. But Hannah was charged and convicted of using a firearm in a negligent manner and or loading live ammunition into the real prop gun and failing to perform a safety check in the ammunition as required. Haig has consistently opined the gun was working properly at the time of the shooting of Hutchins on August 31st. The report is no exception. The fact he had to modify his report is exculpatory. He had to change his opinion. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to build a theory on. I don't know, Kari. It's not your job to determine that. If the gun was working properly, as Haig has consistently testified to, Well, we didn't even get to that point. Lucian Hague hadn't testified. Like, we hadn't gotten all the way there yet to proving that everybody said the gun worked great. We got through part of it. As Hague has consistently testified to, then there is no causation issue related to the microscopic tool marks on top of the sear. Yeah, but we don't know that. We never got that far. Even if we assume the Hague report stands for the notion the gun fired up itself or malfunctioned, it doesn't change the facts and circumstances that sound what Hannah Reed did and her conviction. Doesn't it really, though? Moreover, Hague has since modified his opinion after receiving additional information about the gun and the accidental discharge testing, and has now opined the tool marks were the result of the FBI's accidental discharge testing. Hannah's attorneys have the right to put that to the test. They have the right to question him on that, and they were never given that opportunity. Oh. She's so butthurt about the ruling. Yes, guys. Dolly talking, guys, because Dolly was a very resourceful and endeavoring journalist. He secured all the discovery from the Hannah Reed case, which is also all the discovery from the Alec Baldwin case, including all of the footage, all the completely unedited body cams and interviews, including stuff we had not seen yet in the Alec Baldwin trial, which probably would have been showed. But alas, we never got to it because, well, the trial ended early. But Dolly has those over on his channel at Dolly Talks. And there he's been going through the backlog of Alec Baldwin evidence and kind of going through it, seeing what was there. And it is interesting. It's interesting seeing, the what could have been and what might have been seen, but now it's just up for us to determine and interpret. So take a look over there, guys. It's actually pretty neat seeing what's there. Kimbo says, I think Kari's a good defense attorney and it showed during the trial. Yes, this is a defense attorney who didn't do a good job here. I don't think she's a bad attorney. She's just not meant to be a prosecutor. Hague did not perjure himself during his testimony at the Gutierrez trial, and undersigned counsel did not support perjury. I think that's Hannah's attorney's job to suss that out. That's Hannah's attorney's job to suss out this issue. How do we know? How do we know? Hague was asked by Bowles about the functionality gun. He answered all questions truthfully. Hague's testimony regarding the lack of damage or modification of the gun was accurate given the context of the questions from Bowles, which centered around functionality. I think that's a little bit of a stretch there, Kari. If he would have known that there was a report, he would have tailored his evidence differently, though. His cross-examination was only tailored on the evidence you provided. So you can't say, he did a good enough job. And suppression of additional material. And then the last thing here. In the motion, Bowles asserts his client should receive a new trial due to email communications between Brian Carpenter and the former prosecutors and Lucian Hague and the current prosecutors. While Bowles seems to assert the undisclosed emails warrant a new trial, he makes no effort to explain how the unremarkable emails fulfill the meat. And this is, I think she means fulfill the legal requirements for a new trial. Guys, I'm not going to make fun of her for that. I make typos all the fucking time. All of a sudden you're talking about defendant Bob and you forget, like you copy and paste and defendant Susan. It happens all the time. No big deal. As such, undersigned counsel will end her analysis here and wait for supplemental briefing from the defendant. Well, that's kind of bullshit. Lay out your cards, Kari. Because if he doesn't address it, that would be hilarious to just leave her hanging. As outlined above, there's 3 requirements for a Brady violation. It's favorable to the accused because it's exculpatory or impeachable evidence. It was suppressed by the state and prejudice must have ensued. While this is not the law that controls whether the defendant is granted a new trial, the state will address it briefly, because it's argued in the motion. And once again, she's going right back to the whole attorney's leaving. She's like, "That's not true." She's really got to fight it. With regard to Erlinda Johnson's departure from the prosecution team, is all relevant to the motion for a new trial. Well, I don't trust you, Kari, so maybe we have to bring her in and have her testify. That would be hilarious. If I'm Jason Bowles, I'm serving her with a subpoena. I would ask the court that I'd like her to have to testify. And then I'd say, Your Honor, can we do that? And may I leave the court to serve her with a subpoena? Boop. Come on in. That would be epic. They talk about the doc report here and all the issues around it. There's nothing relevant about the circumstances related to the doc report and the case number and the Teskey rounds as relevant to Hannah Reed's motion for a new trial, as the evidence at issue was not in the possession of the state until the end of the trial. You still have an obligation to provide them with the evidence as soon as you get it. And notice it wasn't in their possession until trial. The police are the state, and you are the state. They had it that day. It wasn't over yet. More overall testimony provided by the undersigned counsel regard to Bull's lack of interest is based entirely on Teskey's own statements made during his brief encounter with law enforcement. So this is actually, here's the funny part. Part of Kari's argument is these guys are sketchy and liars. But now she's also saying, but wait, he's saying this is true. He's saying this happened. You have to believe Troy Teskey that he talked to Jason Bowles. There's no statements from Jason Bowles that he actually denied it. That's very interesting. That's new. That is new. That you guys, that claim I had about them having access to it, that goes out the window. Because if you're saying Troy Teskey's a piece of shit, then how can we trust him? Am I wrong here? Am I wrong here? I mean, that's a big concern. You're claiming that we're now learning this. This is weird. This is weird to me. I don't know how she can rely on Seth Kenney in one breath and then also say he's a liar and suspect. I don't know how she can do that. I really don't. I don't know. Will Reed says Teskey can't be trusted unquestionably because he's friends with the defendant's father. Yes. But here's the issue, chat, while you guys were babbling about all that. The Teskey rounds were given to Bowles and he didn't want them. The only reason why we know that is because Troy Teskey told the police that happened. There's no evidence from Jason Bowles that he ever actually did deny these. So the sketchy guy, Troy Teskey, who ran around with these ammo, she's like, he did it years later. It doesn't add up. Oh, but this statement is legitimate. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. None of these guys can be trusted. Seth Kenney, Troy Teskey, none of them are trustworthy. The undisclosed interview with Seth Kenney is not exculpatory or impeaching, and it did not result in prejudice for the reasons above. I agree. If these statements were cumulative or were mirrored by others' information they had, I don't think that's a problem. So this thing here, guys, this Troy Teskey or the Seth Kenney interview, let's say it's important. Let's say it's important. I don't know if it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to be the big deal here, because if they already had it and it's cumulative and it's a duplicate basically of and a consolidation of other evidence you have, That's not really the big deal here. Yeah, and Ariel's saying he could have been like, "Oh no, please bring those to the police because they didn't do their job." And Teskey says Bull said he didn't want them, and those are very different statements. Yeah, 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 yeah. But here's the thing: like that turns into an issue of if I'm the attorney, I'm not sure I want those at that point because now I'm part of the chain of custody. So I could have, I'd have been like, no, 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 give them to the cops. Don't give them to me. And Luke is saying, Bowles also said he didn't want the rounds at his motion. He justifies it as they wouldn't test them for me, so I couldn't use them. But he basically agrees. I know that, but she doesn't state that here. She's not accepting that. But that's a problem. Like I said, it could still be an issue. We'll find out. We'll find out, though. The undisclosed Hague report is not exculpatory impeaching, as Hague has consistently opined that the gun fired functioned properly. Yeah. Moreover, since Hague has gathered additional information about the history of the gun in the FBI testing, he's now of the opinion the microscopic tool marks were the result of the FBI's accidental testing. Well, I don't know. Luke says, I mean, it's ineffective relying on Kari's reputation and the rounds look dissimilar or not. Look at the rounds yourself. Oh, I agree. I entirely agree. Bull should have inspected all the ammo. But Kari has caused problems up here on her own, which I think are bigger. And Will says, why did they wait till the end? Well, the whole thing reeks to high heaven. It doesn't help that Bowles was an idiot. That didn't help anything. And yes, he got released from his subpoena at the end, but it doesn't help that Bowles is an idiot. So, the state agrees with the defendant's recitation of the law regarding disclosures under 5501 and agrees that any witness statement that was not disclosed was an inadvertent violation. The question is not whether it's there, but the 6 factors it's required to consider in granting a new trial. So for newly discovered evidence, you have to have probable change of the result if a new trial is granted. I think there might be with this evidence there. Two was disclosed after the trial. It was disclosed after the trial. 3 could not have been discovered before the trial by the exercise of due diligence. It wasn't disclosed before the trial. 4 is material. I think it's material. 5 is not merely cumulative. I don't think it's cumulative. The Seth Kenney interview will be cumulative. That's 100% going to be cumulative. And 6 is not merely impeaching or contradictory. There's a lot there. And she says this analysis only applies to the undisclosed interview by Seth Kenney and the undisclosed report from Lucian Hague. The state concedes the second prong of the 6-prong test has been met, as both the interview and the report were discovered after trial. So now she just lays out real quick. She says, would the interview change the jury's guilty verdict for new trial were granted for the Seth Kenney interview? She says there's no indication that would change the result. I agree. None of the Seth Kenney statements are probably going to change. The Hague report, and she says the state concedes the defendant can meet with the second prong. It wasn't provided. However, she says it wasn't going to change anything. But the issues relate to tool marks on the top of the sear in the existing report could have been discovered if the defense had simply asked Hague, how many reports did you provide to the state in this case? Now, here's the issue for Kari. Once again, it's not his job to make sure you did yours. That's not his fault. That's not his fault. Should it have been done? Sure. That's not a bad idea, but that's not his fault. It's not his fault he didn't discover your Brady violation early enough. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. The question wasn't asked in part because Mr. Bowles did not attend the vast majority of the pretrial interviews, which include Hague's interview, This material could have also been discovered simply by having the defendant's own expert review the photos taken by Haig that clearly showed the tool marks on top of the sear by having defendant's expert examine the gun. Remember, that's not their job to figure out you did something wrong. Moreover, the statements in the report are merely impeaching. And well, see, and she agrees, guys. Yes, is he telling the truth? Is he correct? The opinion specifically with regard to the August 31st report after obtaining additional, well, I'm sure she means 2023, because we haven't gotten there yet, information about the gun and the FBI's testing of the gun. Finally, given that the tool marks on the sear do not and have never affected the functionality of the gun, we don't actually know that. They are largely immaterial. With regard to the defendant's argument she should be released pending appeal, the state hereby incorporates all arguments submitted in response prior to the release and its motion for stuff filed on July 26th. And then wherefore the state requests the court could deny the motion for a new trial. Now, we're going to go through those. Here's Exhibit 1, the working conditions thing. Here is Exhibit 2. And down below is where's the call number? Where's the call for safety? Yeah, I don't see any come through here to take a look for stuff. There's no phone number for that. Where's the hotline? Yeah, I don't see the hotline on here. Bull's ineffective for not asking him about that perjury. Yeah, well, but here's the thing. So I want to email Bowles and ask him if he got Carpenter's grand jury testimony for Baldwin. I doubt he did. I bet there's a lot of shit Alex Spiro has that Jason Bowles never got. So, yeah, and I don't see this phone number on the back page here. Oh, there we go. The IATSE safety hotline right there. God, that is hard to read. That is hard to read, man. Yeah, but Bowles didn't bring it up in his motion. Well, that's another issue here. So here is this is which exhibit is this? Saying, Luke, did you get a chance to write an addendum report regarding the additional testing of the sheriff's office? He says, yep, attaches the PDF. I'll be sending this soon. And this is Kari and them sending it, but this is after that one's done. Then here is one from Jason Bowles to Kari Morrissey. And all of it's redacted, but she's saying, par for the courts. Interesting, though, that you were able to accept Baldwin's unsupported theory and Nolly when you didn't have to get the New York lawyers out. Oh, my God. Wow. I didn't read this yet. Jason Bowles is fucking big dogging her. He is like fucking big dogging Kari. He's calling her the fuck out, chat. Here we go. He's calling her out. You know. He's like, bitch, you bent the knee. You this unsupported theory and Nolly means dismissed when you didn't have to get rid of the New York lawyers. When the slight wear and tear in the news report isn't remotely evidence of modification or anything to do with the trigger function or functionality of the weapon. So that's the funny part. Then why did you dismiss it, Kari? And that's a very good point Bowles brought up. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. You brought up a really good fucking point. Why aren't you doing shit with that then? If you knew this was all legitimate, what were you fucking around for? Why did you do that, Kari? That doesn't make any sense. You know, you have videos showing the gun worked properly, cocked and fired on set. The FBI said the gun functioned properly prior to their damaging it. Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger, and you know it. Okay, if the sear notches were filed down, it wouldn't have even cocked. I wish you had applied the same rigor or lack thereof even-handedly to both defendants. Whoa! You spent 3 hours with Baldwin's lawyers and never even bothered to interview our expert or witnesses we lined up. God, thank God she didn't, because those guys would have been idiots. If you think this is justice, so be it. It isn't consistent with the prosecutorial function. I've been a prosecutor in that position, so I can speak with authority on it. Oof. Yeah, he made this argument in the motion to dismiss. Yeah. Yes, I remember reading through it and looking at it. That's awesome. And Jason Bowles thinks, oh God, why can't I read these, Kari? God damn you. All right. So yeah, we can't read it. I wanted to read that. I wanted to read this one with Brian Carpenter, but you can't read it. The email there, I thought it was attached, but oh well. It's not there. It's not there, chat. Oh. All right. So we got a couple things to get through. Automata says to leak the body cam fund. Well, thank you. And then Kat, but not Kat Williams, gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Kat. And then Adam Walthen or Adam Wathan. I forget how you pronounce it. If I butcher that, let me know, man. Gifted 10 memberships. Thank you. Thank you for your support and your generosity, both of you guys. So what does this mean? Well, I mean, this is where Kari's listen to Kari. She's saying, it's your job. You didn't find this. That's not how that works. How dare you not catch me violating Brady v. Maryland or Giglio? How dare you? That's not going to work. That's not going to work, Kari. It shouldn't. The hearing is on September 5th. Good. Good. That'll be very good. Oh. That'll be good. Oh, Nick has kids back. Well, that's good for them. Good. And Bella's saying, please, God, let Nick stay clean, please. I hope so, too. I've said that from the start. I hope he stays clean, but we'll see. So the hearing on September 5th, that's good to know. I can't wait to see Kari mauled and seethe in that. Tim Walz is a cuck. Yes, he is. By the way, show off for asking to exceed the page limit after filing the motion like an entitled bitch. Well, that is funny. She does do that. Now, guys, when you do file cases, you have to follow all the rules that are there. And one of the rules is typically you have to abide by page limits, and those are very serious. And typically, if you don't, you can lose your ability to keep going there. And Kari, when you do this, you do file motions, and I've done this before in courts. I've done this before on appeals. Hey, I need more room. And you can generally get it, as long as you don't do it all the goddamn time. You know, brevity is the soul of wit, but sometimes you can't force everything where it needs to go. You just you can't get it in there. You're just like, ah! And it just doesn't want to do it. So it is funny. She did this, and she didn't file she filed this the day after she filed her motion, which is kind of the wrong way to do it. You can file them at the same if you know ahead of time, you're like a week or two out. That's the way you should probably do this. Hey, judge, I need more time. Or I'm going to need more space. And you file it ahead of time. And the court will generally grant it. Or if you file it at the same time you file the motion, you file your brief, you file the motion for page limits, you'd file it like instanter. Instant, and then ER, instanter, meaning, can you accept this in conjunction with that filing? Will you accept it immediately? And most times, even courts that are like, yeah, whatever. Appeals, though, no, you got to do it the right way. But she comes in a day late and is saying, yeah, judge, can you, I need leave a court to file her motion in excess of page limits. The defendant got it. I needed to. Under the local rules, motions cannot exceed 10 pages. And that's, remember, we have rules for a reason. Judge Summer does not want to look through a pound of bullshit here. And then this motion is currently 34 pages long with header, conclusion, and certificate of service, not including exhibits, which generally don't count. Wherefore, this court requests the court to enter an order allowing extension of the page limits to 34 pages. And it doesn't appear to have been granted yet, but presumably will be granted. So, whatever. That's just, once again, that's just another bad luck for Kari. Another bad luck for Kari. And who is... Rachel K says, I hope it's all denied. Well, for Kari or Hannah, I'm not sure. Joe Lloyd for 10 pounds sterling. The King Sterling says, thank you, by the way, saying, I like your explanations and take on things, and you make me laugh. Well, you're welcome. Hopefully they're decent takes, because that's the... I'm glad you laugh, but I'm be more hopeful, and hopefully they're correct. I like a reason exceed is fine, but the order is funny. J Rock is saying, Keener said Nick's CPS case is done. Is that true? Nick is claiming it is. I mean, is it done, or do they have protective supervision? Who knows? Who knows? Let's see here. What do you guys... James Reed says, she getting a new trial? We don't know yet. That's not till September 5th. There is still Jason Bowles get a chance to respond, so we don't know yet. So most likely no, just in general. But remember, this court is already very pissed off with the prosecutors for fucking around. So, yeah, guys, that's it. And we are all caught up. We're all caught up. She's not getting a new trial yet. Nothing's been guaranteed. So we will see. Kimbo says, is Alec completely done? I don't know if the court... Well, Kari's claiming the court has not done a final order yet for Alec's case. But I think, as of July 31st, the court entered its motion for dismissal and sanctions under Brady and Giglio. So presumably Kari has 30 days to file from that date. So it'll be, August 30th. She has till then. And August 30th is a Friday. So she has until the last Friday in August to get that done. I don't know if she's going to appeal it, though. It's going to be really tough. I think the judge did a very good job on the record laying it out. And remember, the appeals are for losers on both sides. You're going to have to remember, you're convincing the court to go back on what it did, undo the thing it just did. Kari's now going to the Court of Appeal and saying, you guys need to undo the thing the judge just did. And the court is going to be very reluctant to do that to start with. Remember, courts hate going back on shit. So it's very likely, even if she does appeal, she's going to lose. But we'll see. And she can appeal because, as Will Reed is correct on, it's an issue of law. She made a ruling based on the issues of law. Those were not issues of fact. So we'll find out. Kari's got about a month. Eric says, isn't he still trying to sue everyone? I don't know who's suing who. Matt B says, with prejudice, sure. But you can still appeal that. The state can appeal that because it's not an acquittal. It's a dismissal with prejudice, and they can argue the judge inappropriately did factors. She acted arbitrarily and capricious. She abused her discretion. Blah, 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 blah. But we'll find out. Distant says, I hate the fact that none of this evidence actually matters to the crime. Where did the bullets come from? Who cares? Well, it actually does matter, but hold the process accountable 100%. Well, it all matters at the end of the day. It all matters, one way or another. It all matters. It all matters. So we will see here. So I think Thel is being protected. Yeah, but he's like on his way out and dying. I don't really know, like, why would he just go? Um, so Ken saying it's typical for a court of appeal. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be very, very tough. So remember, Kari's got the same problem Hannah, like, every other defendant has. Like we talked about Ashley Benefield, Zachariah Anderson, who else we watch has been convicted so far? Anybody else we've ever watched has been convicted. They're going to have to convince the court to overturn it, and that's not easy. You generally don't get that goal. Courts are very reluctant. Salty says it was a bad ruling. The judge didn't like Morrissey and Spiro. Lied to take advantage of that. I mean, did he lie? If he knew about stuff, remember, you said the case down in the Young Thug case today, the prosecutor made the same argument. Well, they knew, so it's not my fault. It's not a Brady violation anymore. If I learn that you've withheld evidence, does that make it a Brady violation? I mean, that's the issue. Yeah, Nikolai Mew, another good example. So we'll find out. And all you guys are asking, what's going on with Nick's thing? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out. There'll probably be some documents getting dropped. Yes, is it weird that it just drops clean and clear within 3 months of that? Yes. So who knows what the situation is? Is there protective supervision? Don't really know. Don't really know. Love It 2 times says what? Body cam footage? No. No. There's no body cam footage. Another earthquake near the Grapevine. Okay. The judge is back. Yes. The judge is asking. The judge is back. Yes. So we'll see. Yes. Guys, the trial's back on. Yes. And Clyde Coin is to the moon. Robert says, I felt an earthquake and checked. So Patty says, I'm going to keep praying for Nick and his family. Good for you, man. Good for you. That's a very wholesome thing to do. If Arizona Bay comes, Clyde Klein will blow clear past the moon. Yes. Deanna says, I thought you knew everything. I don't know everything. I am farthest thing from that. I am a retarded guy who figured out. I'm a retarded monkey who wears pants. I am far from being the smartest man on earth. The smartest man in I am far from being the smartest man in this room right now, and I'm the only guy in the room, okay? I am far from being the smartest man in the room. Bye, Francis. Sean ignored me. I timed it perfectly. Which thing? Yeah. I mean, maybe I didn't ignore you. Maybe I read you. The Japanese radiation ruined California. Yeah. I didn't realize that. So there are really, are there earthquakes going right now? I hope everybody out there is fine. Oh, yeah. Outside of Bakersfield, California, there was a 5.2. Oof. Oh, wow. There's been a I don't know if this is good, chat. Yeah, recent earthquakes. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All today, August 7th. Oh no, chat. Some of them aren't bad, like like a 3.4 or 3.2. You're like, yeah, those are little guys. Don't worry about that. And it's just picking up, and picking up. Now there's a 5.2. 50 aftershocks. Like, oh no. Struck at 9:09 Pacific time Tuesday. Oh boy, you guys be careful out there. That's in LA, they could feel the shaking 90 miles away from a jeez. Be careful out there, guys. Be careful. Don't fall in the ocean. Be careful. Yeah, be careful, man. But oh boy. Well, LA finally slide in the ocean, yeah. All in a 3 square mile area. Whoa. That's not good. That's not good. Lovin says the Mercada body cam footage out just got here. No, there's no body cam footage. No. Don't worry. You'll see in the title if that were to happen. 5.2 isn't the issue, it's the amount of them. Well, that's part of the issue. They're escalating and going up, up, and up. Oh man, that's not good. Will Reed says it doesn't take much to feel. Yeah, but you know what? Like, I've been like out here in Ohio, we've had like little earthquakes before, and I've never felt them. So, like, I remember my dad said, like, when the Challenger exploded in '86, there was an earthquake in Ohio, and he's like, the only reason why he noticed is because he was like, I'm like, how'd you notice, Dad? He's like, I was reading a book and taking a crap, and I saw the spitter on the counter in the bathroom was shaking. He's like, my spitter was shaking. I was like, oh, okay. Because he did skull, so he's like, my spitter was shaking. The earthquakes are part of the reason behind the Grapevine Mountains. Yes, I get that, but it's like earthquakes are also part of the reason things disappear. She says the Ohio-Alabama line is the second most powerful in the country. Well, there's the New Madrid fault. That's probably like actually bigger, but Rabbit Stick says someone named Cynthia said you had the body cam. I know Cynthia did. Cynthia's a retard, so I don't have it. Yes, what do we think this is, Guam? Yeah. Think of how much horchata was spilled. I know, the humanity. The humanity. Yes, the media order for Nick's criminal case has been posted. Oh, really? The media order, or are you talking about everybody asking to get in? Because if they've already done the order, that's impressive. So if you guys were not aware, back about almost 2 months ago, I gave my stuff to Null, an affidavit saying I'd like to cover it. I can't cover it if we're not allowed to watch. Please let us watch, Judge. And we'll see here. Is this? Oh yeah, guys, this is not, the order hasn't dropped. It's just people looking at it. Yeah, that's not an order. The order is the court saying I'm going to allow it or not allow it. That's the order. Yes. Yes, we offer California's tribute. CERN has entered the chat. Null's lawyer thing he got posted too. I know, that's because I sent it in to Null's lawyer. So he sent all of our shit in. Lenny will warn me of an impending earthquake. Well, all animals will notify. I was 8 when Loma Prieta happened and felt in Sacramento. Well, yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. But yeah, guys, maybe the Langoliers are happening and they're taking California. That's a funny movie with the guy from Perfect Strangers when he gets eaten up. That's an interesting movie. That's like more of an interesting movie when you think about if they were able to invest more in it. It wasn't like a TV movie. That could have blown the Matrix out of the water of like, dude, are we here? What are we about? But anyways. All right, guys, I think we're all set for tonight. And yeah, that is it. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be about a month till we find out. But I have a feeling the judge is not going to be very receptive to Kari Morrissey, given all the crap she had played. Bronson Pinochet. There we go. That's his name. That's his name. Boop. That's his name. Oh. So we'll take a look. We'll take a look, guys. There's going to be more going on. And yeah, thank you for being here. Perfect Strangers guy. Yes, that's why I remember him. You still haven't commented on Trump's vicious flirting with the black lady. No, but we do have stuff to talk about tomorrow, guys. The Trump case in front of Judge Chutkan, the January 6th case, is back on track. The judge is already setting hearing dates, and she is getting ready to go. We're going to be covering that tomorrow, along with a couple other things. And some very interesting stuff. If you guys remember, the Kansas police chief that ran the newspaper is going to get indicted for something. We don't know yet what, but they're looking to charge him. Chad Dorman, he's the guy in Ohio who baptized his 3 sons with a rifle. He pled out. So we covered his suppression hearing a while back in the motion to suppress. He pled out. The guy who beheaded his dad on YouTube, he had a sanity hearing. And then a couple of things, including the Department of Defense revoked the plea offers made to the 9/11. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the other guys responsible for 9/11. That was revoked. And it's interesting how that all kind of came out. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And yeah, we might be doing some other stuff tomorrow too. We'll see how early I get done with my day. So guys, until next time. Sean thinks he pushed people out of helicopters. Not yet, but someday we will. Someday we will, chat. Just because you did it does not mean you're guilty. And that still applies for Hannah Reid. I think she's not guilty in this case. She should be released. And she should get a new trial or at least dismissal of the charges. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Good night, chat. Take care, everybody.
Weapons, blacksmithing, and models of planes, esoteric works, and even some trains. Much merriment had while drinking White Claws, tips on hunting, and even talking the law. Whatever you do, just don't talk to cops, even when they nab you on illegal stops. Just 'cause you did it doesn't mean you're guilty, but please talk to a local attorney. Was that the fact?